Hello everyone, Metallion Magic here, and today I'm going to be displaying the deck that I played for my first M15 pre-release. I played in two pre-releases, Saturday and Sunday of the pre-release weekend, and both days I played a red-black deck. The first day I played a more aggressive deck, and that's the deck that you have in front of you right now. The second day, my deck was more mid-range. It had Obnixilis Unshackled. It was decent, but this one, for a couple of reasons, proved to be more successful. If you're interested, obviously you can see the Siege Dragon down here. So it should be clear to those of you who went to the pre-release that I chose red on Saturday as my seeded color. I also chose red on Sunday as Siege Dragon is expensive. I didn't really choose it for the promo, though. I chose red because I wanted the seeded pack and the chance to get some of the uncommon red removal spells, like Stoke the Flames and Heat Ray. In this pool, I didn't get those. On the second day, I did. But this pool turned out not to need them. I went 3-1 with this deck. And was very close, actually, in the match that I lost. I lost to a Game 3 Soul of New Phyrexia. That being said, though, this deck was really fun to play, and I didn't recognize the core synergy right away when I was building the deck, but as I started looking over the different builds and was considering red-green, I noticed this core synergy that I'm about to talk about, and it worked out quite beautifully. And that synergy kind of revolves around Goblin Rabblemaster. So, some of you out there might be wondering, why did I play 3 Foundry Street Denizens? And the reason I played 3 Foundry Street Denizens is that this deck had the potential draw of Foundry Street Denizen into either Child of Night or Inferno Fist, into Goblin Rabblemaster, or another option was to save the Inferno Fist if I had Slyblade in my hand and put the Inferno Fist on the Slyblade because it has hexproof unless you activate its ability. And then on turn 4, hopefully play one of the Paragons. I had the black and the red Paragon in this deck. And the best draw, I think, was just going Denizen into Inferno Fist, into Rabblemaster, into red Paragon, and then on turn 4, when I play the Paragon, potentially do 16 damage. Now, of course, if my opponent has blockers or removal spells, that won't be the case, but that was the ideal scenario. And of course, I do have cards like Lightning Strike to remove opposing early threats or blockers. 2 Crippling Blight in a really fast, aggressive deck like this, that's a really nice effect. It takes a blocker on turn 4 or 5 potentially out of the way, so you can swing in for those final points of damage. And then at the top end of the deck, I started out in a more aggressive configuration with Shadowcloak Vampire, a Lava Axe, so that I could potentially finish an opponent off who I reduced to a low life total, but then, you know, if my opponent reached a point where they stabilized the game or stalled my attackers when at 4 or 5 life, that was a live draw or a potential finisher, and the deck had enough early aggression to often get me to that point where my opponent was at low life by turn 5 or 6. Miner's Bane I wanted to try out. Also, he's a late game mana sink. Even in a deck like this that's very fast and aggressive in sealed, I wanted a way to deal with opposing bombs, even though that's not the best way to do so, and I wanted something to put my mana into if a game went longer than I would have liked it to, based on the primary strategy of this deck. And I actually did win the final game of the event, or you know, the last game of my 4th match with Siege Dragon, because I was playing against a slow control deck, a deck that was able to stop some of my early threats but didn't really have early threats of their own. We reached a mid-game scenario in which Siege Dragon was able to come down unopposed and swing in for 5 the turn after I played it. So one of the nice things about this deck, and one of the things that really impressed me, was Goblin Rabblemaster. There were 4 games in which Goblin Rabblemaster was in my opening hand, and I won all 4 of those games fairly easily. Now, I know that that won't always be the case, but in these scenarios, my opponents were playing slower mid-range decks that took a while to set up and do powerful things, and Rabblemaster really punished their slow starts. It's really, really cool that, and one of the reasons that I'm playing the 3 Foundry Street Denizens is it's really, really cool that they are goblins, because where the synergy comes in is, like, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 goblins in the main deck, and I have 2 in the sideboard. I'll get to that in a moment. And so Rabblemaster, when he creates goblins, will already get a power benefit if he attacks. Let's say, the turn after you play him, he'll have already created 2 goblins, one the turn that he comes down, one the turn after, and he can attack as a 4-power creature on the next turn, which can be really powerful if you, say, Inferno Fist Crippling Blight, like on turn 4 after you play Goblin Rabblemaster, then you put Inferno Fist on him perhaps, and then Crippling Blight an opposing blocker, and then get in for a bunch of damage. Or play the Paragon of Fierce Defiance, and then all of those red goblin tokens that he's creating will become 2/2s instead of 1/1s. So there were a lot of cool synergies that I noticed, synergies that allowed me to diversify the ways that I was able to damage my opponent, and also synergies that created scenarios where my opponent had difficult decisions to make and very few good blocking options. That being said, I did also find, though this came up in only one game, that Zathrad's Slyblade can be very good. It's not always very good, but the game where I was able to put Inferno Fist on it was a game that I felt afterwards very far ahead in. It was also against that control deck, and none of their targeted removal was really... It couldn't do anything. Slyblade has hexproof. There really weren't too many reasons why I wanted to activate its Death Touch First Strike ability where it loses hexproof, and by the time I did, I'd already done so much damage with it, I was okay if they had a removal spell or a bounce spell at that point, because I, at that point, wanted to kill the creature that was blocking it and was not really concerned with the fate of the Slyblade. It did its work quite beautifully in that game. I was very impressed with Inferno Fist. I was very impressed with Goblin Rabblemaster, and I was very impressed with Paragon of Fierce Defiance. Those were the cards. I mean, there were other cards in this deck that were nice. Gravedigger to get back a Rabblemaster that died unexpectedly, or, like I said, Lava Axe to finish off an opponent who was low on life but then stabilized. But really, the 3 cards that on the curve on 2, 3, and 4 that really impressed me in this build were Inferno Fist, Goblin Rabblemaster, and Paragon of Fierce Defiance. I have these 2 cards here, and you might be asking why are those beside Lava Axe and Miner's Bane? And the reason is that in certain matchups they were interchangeable. Those were the sideboard cards that were sort of easily swappable. If I was playing against a deck where I felt like the Lava Axe wasn't going to do as much, a deck where I felt like I would want another threat, and a threat that could potentially help me win a more mid-range based game, I brought in Rot Feaster Maggot. I also brought that in because of its exile ability, like the exiling a creature, target creature from a graveyard to gain life, in a game where I felt like early on my creatures were either going to be trading or getting killed. So for example, I brought the Maggot in a matchup where my opponent had like 3 lightning strikes, a heat ray, and a feast, the black feast, or flesh to dust, that's what it's called, I'm sorry, flesh to dust, the black removal spell. They had just like a bunch of removal, and Lava Axe wasn't really going to do me any good in that matchup because I couldn't get them low enough early to make use of Lava Axe, but getting a resilient, high toughness creature down in the mid game that could gain me some life, and provide a more stable threat after they had burnt away some of my early creatures was quite nice in that matchup. The Obelisk of Erd felt kind of like a win more card, but obviously you can see, I hope you can see, the synergy that it has with the Goblin theme. Obviously Rabblemaster creates goblins, you can use them to convoke out the Obelisk. Now keep in mind, yes, the goblins have to attack if able, but you can always use them to convoke out the Obelisk on your first main phase, and then they'll be tapped when you go to your combat, go to the beginning of combat, and obviously choosing goblins and giving them all +2/+2 is quite nice, although, like I said, I often found that I just wanted another threat late game, because if I got to that point in the game, it meant that something had probably gone wrong, or that my opponents were trading off creatures or killing my creatures. And like I said, on turn 4, instead of convoking some goblins and playing Obelisk of Erd, I wanted to swing in with those goblins, like play Paragon of Fierce Defiance, swing in with those goblins and do a bunch of damage. So it kind of felt, oddly enough, slow and win-more-y, though I did consider it and tested it out in a few games throughout the tournament because of its obvious synergy with the 5 goblins, one of them being a goblin token producer that are in the deck. So now I'll just give you a quick look at the sideboard, which is right down here. I had another Foundry Street Denizen. I felt like 4 of them was a lot, and although the synergy between the Denizen and the Inferno Fist and the Rabblemaster and the Paragon was enough to convince me that drawing one, in my opening hand or very early was good. Drawing 1 or more of them late game in a potential mid or late situation just seemed bad, and including 4 of these guys in a 40-card deck didn't seem like the best choice. Then I had a Rummaging Goblin. Again, it's a goblin. It has synergistic potential in this deck, but again, in that mid-range matchup against the person with removal, I did bring it in, but this was also a card like the Obelisk of Erd, where I thought it was kind of slow. Like, it's a 1/1 for 3, I have to discard a card to draw a card, and I'm not even sure that the card I draw is necessarily going to be better. I didn't feel like this was pushing the aggressiveness that this deck wanted to center around, or it didn't really add to the speed of the deck, because if you're tapping it to use its ability, you're not attacking with it. Some other sideboard cards that I had an Endless Obedience, I had a Fester Gloom. Obviously there could be many situations in which this could be detrimental to me, but against a deck full of 1/1 white tokens like Raise the Alarm and Triplicate Spirits cards that produce 1/1 white tokens, this was certainly a sideboard tool that I had. Circle of Flame, didn't really bring this in, didn't really have a matchup where it was needed. I mean, but that being said, it was in the sideboard because it's clearly a sideboard card. 2 of those. Staff of the Flame Magus, I never really brought this in either, but I mean, of course, my deck is red, or at least primarily. Is it primarily, or is it half and half split? I mean, it's a pretty even split between red and black, but I think it was skewed on the red side of things. And that being said, I had this in the sideboard as an option. I had this card in my pool, but it's not really playable and limited in my opinion. And I had some other stuff. Cards like this, some people might think, oh, some of these should have been in here. But again, if I'm using the mana to cast an Equip Hot Soup, I'm not using that mana to play a creature on turn 1 or 3 potentially. I could play this on turn 1, then play like a Child of Night, and then attach this to it. But again, I think it just uses up too many of the resources potentially early in the game. It's potentially a good late game inevitability type card or hedge against a stalled out game. But I think I had better ways of dealing with those kind of games than Hot Soup. So yeah, I mean, that's basically, I didn't really have any artifacts, so Shrapnel Blast wasn't going to be in here. Also, just to let you know, in case you want just a quick count for my land count here, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 mountains, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 swamps. I had 1 more mountain because I really wanted to hit the Foundry Street Denizens on turn 1 if they were in my opening hand. I really wanted to be able to cast Inferno Fist on a Foundry Street on turn 2, or maybe Lightning Strike away a creature on turn 2 or 3. I wanted to be able to hit Rabblemaster consistently if he was in my opening hand. And the only cards that I have in the deck that cost double color are Kirkesh, Siege Dragon, and Miner's Bane, and those are all double red cards. I had no double black cards, so going with 9 mountains and 8 swamps made sense for those reasons. So thank you for watching. I really enjoyed playing this deck. Like I said, I did very well with it. I went 3-1. I ended up winning at this particular store 5 packs of M15, which was pretty fun. It's nice to win some packs when you have spend an afternoon playing with a set for the first time ever. And M15 is pretty sweet. I'm currently enjoying opening product, and perhaps you've watched our Fat Pack opening video. If not, go and check out our Fat Pack opening playlist, and you will find a video of an M15 Fat Pack opening. And as always, if you have any suggestions about the way that I built this deck, or any ideas regarding decks of this nature going forward in M15 Limited, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. This is Metallian Magic signing out.